Okay, good afternoon, everyone. How are you? How are you doing first?
Good afternoon, Professor.
I hope you are doing well. I mean, during this corona outbreak.
Professor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, yes.
Okay.
I do. Okay, it's fine.
Thank
Thank you for checking, yeah. Just I will start a few things because last time I've noticed that there are a few things that need to be explained. So I need to explain a few things before I give the floor to Badr. Of course, if Sana is also ready, she could probably last time, I mean, it's not her problem. It was not her problem. She had some connection problems. Probably she couldn't have enough internet data. But if not, I will explain a few things that are, left out last time, so I can interfere. Otherwise, she will explain the remaining stuff that she couldn't cover last time. Okay, I will start from this. Given that this one is related to the what you call the phase impenetrability condition, and but just you need to know that this condition that has been suggested in the phase theory, that Chomsky started to think about it like in the 2000 and 2001. He talked about phases in general, but you need to know about the background. That is, this problem of a phase impenetrability condition or a hypothesis even, when did it start? It started with this problem of what you call the that trace effect. Versus this, I asked you last time to take a look at this. Yep, you had it. This phase impenetrability condition, vacuous movement hypothesis, and that trace effect. That is, when we talk about phase impenetrability condition, it's like the last one. Now, it's like if you would like to start with at the very beginning, it was, I mean, it's that trace effects that was suggested. Then after this vacuous movement, then the end is the phase impenetrability condition. So we need to know about the other ones before we talk about this condition. That is, we need to know about what does it mean that trace effects, what does it mean vacuous movement hypothesis, before we ended up with the phase impenetrability condition. And by the way, this is the last item that Sana talked about. And I remember that even Shema, she gave us a solution to that, and okay, like an answer. But I need to explain a few things. I will just skim over the article. I will not read everything. Of course, we don't have time. We need to save some time for Badr. So, for instance, here it says there has been extensive discussion on the following familiar paradigm. That is, how can we explain that one A here is not a grammatical sentence or legitimate one that is at the interfaces, while who do you think saw Bill? Who do you think that John saw? And who do you think that John fixed the car? I mean, you would say why the first one, or why 1A is, if you like, not possible. One of the things that you have to think about is the presence of that here. I mean, the head of the CP, or what you call the embedded CP here, because you have an embedded CP and you have the matrix CP. Matrix, it means all the time the higher CP, while this one is the one that you have like as if you like as an embedded one, or the lower one. So when I say embedded, think about the lower one. When I say when I say the matrix one, it's like the higher one. Okay, now we might ask the question, why? So look here. Unlike WH extraction, that is WH movement from a non-subject position, that is, if I move a WH item from a subject which is not subject, that is object, for instance, here we have difference between this and WH extraction from a subject position. Okay, for instance, who do you think that Bill saw? Suppose I have this. Who do you think that Bill saw? So this one, it will be what? Grammatical, yes or no? Yes?
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but now we are asking the question,
why, if we extract from the object position, it's possible, but if we extract it from the subject position, it's not possible. Okay, that's the question that we have to raise at this level. So it says here, unlike WH extraction or movement from a when I say non-subject, that is, think about the object position. Why extraction from a non or an object position, WH extraction from a subject position is excluded when the embedded complementizer is over. What is the embedded complementizer? This one. Why? Because I said that this one is the embedded CP. So that here, what is the position of that? C, yes? So this is the embed, this is the overt. Why I'm saying overt? Because you can see it here. You can think about what if we drop it? So it will not be covered. It will not be overt. Okay? So if we drop it, like here, like in B, so meaning you will have a grammatical one. Now we need to understand. So the first thing that we need to understand is that WH construction from a subject position is not possible when you have an overt that. That's why we call it that trace effect. So meaning that here we have a problem with this, because if we think about B, we would say why B is correct now? Because think has access to what? To this position, meaning think is a verb. Okay, and you can say, who do you think saw Bill? So who, this who here, it originated as the subject of the embedded IP, or within the embedded CP. I would say just CP because we need this movement, okay? So who do you think saw Bill? You know that we are asking about who, which originated as subject of saw. But here we are left with what? With a trace, yes? Meaning at this level, for instance, I mean, Sana could have talked about this, but she had illustrated this in her presentation, and she said this is against what? Against the inclusiveness condition in the minimalist program. What does mean the inclusiveness condition? Meaning that in the process of the derivation, you cannot insert something like trace here. So within government binding, this is fine because we have trace, okay? So but within minimalism, what do we have here? We have a copy. That is, you will find something like this. Who do you think? Who here? In the position of trace, you will have who, meaning that's a copy. It's not a trace. We are not inserting anything, just to satisfy what you call the inclusiveness condition. Okay? So this is in minimalism. But now at this level, we are still within government binding. We are still talking about the trace. Now, empty categories, they fall within what you call the empty category principle, or ECP. What does it say, the ECP? It says that every empty category should be properly governed. Yes? So meaning, where is the governor here? Where's the governor here? We are talking about the empty category. Yeah, of course, the governor is think. Okay, so meaning that think governs within government binding, it governs trace, and so it properly governs it because it's an empty category. So given that it is an empty category, we say that the empty categories, they should be properly governed. That's why this one, it has a governor. It is governed by think. But here, what's the problem? The problem is that we have that, and that here, it is functioning like a barrier, because after government binding, we have barriers in 1986 by Chomsky. So that will be what you call a barrier. So meaning that, to conclude this, so meaning that here we can extract a subject, okay, if we don't have that. But automatically we can extract an object. There is no problem, even if we have that. So that will not be a problem for the movement of the object, but it will be a problem for the movement of the subject. So this relationship, this is what we call here that trace effect. Okay, so here it says, well, in the extended standard theory, you remember when we talked about the island constraints, the four island, the WH, NP, the coordinate structure, subjacency, etc. So we talked about this in the extended standard theory. So it was widely assumed at that time that that trace effect in 1A should be attributed to the empty category principle. What does this mean? I will just remind you that the empty category principle says that trace or empty category, like trace empty because it's vacuous also, it's empty, does not have any content here. So meaning it should be properly governed. But there is a problem because we have that between think and the trace. That's why that trace effect here, it goes with what we call the, that is here at this level, we are talking about proper government, okay? Think should properly govern trace, but it will find that it intervenes between the verb and the trace. So the result is what we call that trace effect, okay? It goes, I mean, when you explain that trace effect, all the time you have to think about what you call the empty category principle, which simply, just to remind you that in a way it is a little bit related very closely to the empty category principle, which says that it is, I mean, these empty categories, they should be properly governed. Otherwise, you will end up with something a bit ungrammatical in a way. Okay, so before we get to what we call the phase impenetrability condition, we need to understand, is there any movement from that trace effect to this in the literature? Here we are still talking about 1983, 1986, etc. Then we will, before we move to the phase impenetrability condition, let us see something else. Let us see what has happened that is between ECP. Here we are still talking about empty category principle and that trace effect. For instance, let us take the example here so that you understand well here, okay? So for concreteness, let us look at RIDZI 1990. We are still in 1990 here. The analysis is still dealing with governed binary. RIDZI adopts a formulation of the ECP which requires that a trace, look here, that a trace should be properly head governed. And the head here, this one, okay, that is, if you tell me that who saw Bill, it was at this level. So we think about the movement to spec CP, then the movement to this position. But the problem is that this position, it could be possible if we don't have that which will impede or be an obstacle for this head government between think and its trace. Okay, so. Okay, no need to talk. I think now you got it. I will need to talk about vacuous movements. Okay, this one is just an explanation of what we have talked about. Okay, now we can also think about this. Okay, in 6, I will go to 6. So who do you think that John saw? It's possible. Why? Because who here, if we adopt it within minimalism, it was like the object, it was selected and merged in T, the first T position, okay? Then it has to move overtly to spec CP, etc. So meaning that here, we are extraction of what we call the object. So meaning here, can we talk about that trace effect? No, we talk about that trace effect when we have that here, and instead of John, I have trace. But at this level, no problem. Why? Because we said this has nothing to do with the ECP or the what you call that trace effect. And also, so here it will properly govern the trace. This trace also, it will be properly governed by think. So who it can move without violating anything, at least without violating what you call the ECP. But let us see. What's going to happen when we talk about adjunct? Because here we are talking about what makes this different from an adjunct? This position here. Please.
I think, Professor, it's an object position. It's
an object position, but it's a complement position.
Yes.
This one is a complement position. So the movement, it was from a complement position to this position, which is, so meaning we are talking about we are talking about complement as opposed to adjunct. Why adjunct? Let us read now. In 6 here, the object trace T, this one, okay, is properly head governed. Why? Because there is a head, which is the verb see. It head governs It properly had governance of the embedded verb so. Okay. So there is no violation of ECP because the trace here is properly governed by so. The same thing for this one. The intermediate trace, which one now? T bar here that you can see here is in the spec of the embedded C. Yes, because here I'm saying this is the matrix C, okay, here, this do here, but the embedded C here is, we are talking about that, but the embedded spec CP, this is the embedded one, okay, we are talking about T bar as the embedded C bar, which is properly head governed by the matrix verb. Where is the matrix verb? Of course, I'm talking about the verb think, because the embedded verb is the verb to see. Okay. So also it satisfies the ECP. Yes, because this trace here is properly governed by think, and the same thing, this one is properly governed by so. Okay. But we have this problem of adjunction, which is how here, because how is not a complement position. Fix, look here, fix the car. The car is the object of fix, okay? There is no problem with that. Now, how do you think that John fixed the car? So it sounds that the sentence is grammatical, but let us see, are we still talking about that trace effect, etc.? Okay, let us now consider adjunct WH movement, meaning we are no more dealing with complement, we are talking about adjunct. And the Rizzi's analysis, 5b above is assigned a structure like this one. How do you think that John fixed the car? In 7, I will read so that you can understand easily. The original trace, T, which is adjoined to the embedded VP. Where is the embedded VP? This one. I told you, whenever we say embedded, look at the lower one. So this is the lower one, okay? Is properly head governed by the embedded I. You would say, where is the embedded I? We are talking about IP here, meaning that there is an IP here and there is another IP. If we talk about this IP here as embedded, meaning that there is another one here, which is matrix. Yeah, matrix IP. Okay. So this is instead of IP here, we can as we have used it, we can use the tense phrase. Okay. So we would say that how has moved across the board, across this board. It's like a board. We will talk about it. It's across the transparent VP segment. That is, it has gone above this. Okay, it has moved to this position according to Rizzi. Okay, so the ECP is satisfied. But you might ask the question: how is this trace in this position properly governed? Okay. So turning to 5a, Rizzi claims that Y is the WH version of a sentential adverb and directly base generated in the spec of C, meaning that Rizzi is like claiming that it is base generated here. Yeah, it has moved in here, but still is claiming that it is based and generated, that it is situated in that position. So, underhin is analysis 5a, where Y modifies the embedded clause. Why? Because Y here, that is, when you tell me how, it's like how John fixed the car. So, meaning it modifies the whole clause that we have here, all this. So, meaning that all this, that is the trace here, is the trace of an adjunct that modifies the whole embedded clause. Okay, so where Y modifies the embedded clause is assigned 8. Now, we'll talk about 8 here. In 8, Y originates in the spec of the embedded C and undergoes movement to the spec of the matrix C. Meaning, do you see any trace here? You cannot see the trace. This trace that within government binary, you remember when we have V bar under it, we have another V bar. You remember this? So this is it. I mean, if I ask you now to draw a phrase marker for this, you will find here V bar, and you will find this one, another V bar. Why? Because it's the adjunct. But under this analysis now what do we say? We say that this Y here, just not to cross, because we are moving towards the minimalist approach. And if we do it like this, what would be the problem in the minimalist program? It would be that it's not shortest move. This way it will be what? A long move. So shortest move will be violated. So one of the solutions is that Rizzi is claiming that I mean, this y here, it was base generated here, and from this position, it can modify even this, if you like, it can modify the embedded clause, and at the same time, it will satisfy ECP, because ECP says that this trace at this level here, it should be properly governed. But if we go back to 7, at this level, it will be hard, because we will say that it has moved across, this is what we call, across the board to this position. It will be a problem now for the minimus program, okay? But we could find a solution for it within government binding, but now we are converging towards the minimus program, okay? Okay, sorry. So now we have reached 8, okay? So now the ECP is satisfied here, okay? As you can read, the ECP is satisfied at this level because the trace at this level, as opposed to the trace originating in this position in 7, the trace in this position is properly governed by think. Okay, so this is in general when we talk about, what we call that trace effect. I hope you are taking notes. Okay.
Yes.
So tomorrow is Ramadan, so don't expect any Professor Chrissy talker. Okay. So the second move from that trace effect, the second move when we talk about these types of WH movement is what we call vacuous movement hypothesis, and this is like a second move towards that, because the ECP starts in 1981, okay, in general, okay, as one of the principles that even Sana talked about, the extended projection principle, ECP, etc., as part of the main principles of government binding. She talked about this last time. We would like to thank her, and we would like to excuse her for the technical problems. Okay, what does mean vacuous? Vacuous, it means empty. Even sometimes when we talk to some people who are not creative or not intelligent, we say that he has a vacuous mind. That is, he has a mind which is no ideas, no whatever. Okay. Okay. So what does this vacuous movement mean? It has been claimed by many scholars, okay, that in questions like 9, look here, the subject WH phrase does not move to the spec of CP, but remains in situ. Meaning, if you say who saw Bill, according to the vacuous movement hypothesis, who is in the subject of the position of the is in the position of the subject. It's not the other way around. It's in the position of the subject. So who here is base generated as spec tense phrase or as spec IP, meaning who is the subject and so is the verb, and Bill is the object. The same thing if we use this clause here as an embedded clause, because here you have the matrix clause. I wonder something. So all this functions in grammar. It functions as a noun clause, function as object of wonder. Okay, so who saw Bill is like I wonder John saw Bill. Okay, like this. Okay, so John and who here, according to the vacuous movement hypothesis, is the same. But we need to explain this, not according just to these two sentences, but we need to talk about also about because at this time the islands or the EST, the extended standard theory, at that time it was still available for scholars to argue for or against it, etc. Okay, so this view, so vacuous movement, it means that there is an empty movement, but meaning it's like there is no movement. Who here is situated in the position of the subject, and who is positioned in the subject position of the embedded clause. This view is referred to as the vacuous movement hypothesis, which claims, vacuous movement, that a movement operation whose effect cannot be observed should not be allowed. That is, why would I move who here or who here to spec CP while I need it just as a subject position? So George and Chomsky present arguments for the vacuous movement hypothesis, 3 of which are to be presented below. I will explain just one because I need to talk about the phase impenetrability condition. We will take just this example, and you will see that, yeah. So sometimes it's applicable, this vacuous movement. So you remember when we talk about the island constraints, one of the constraints is what we call the coordinate structure constraint. What does it mean? That is when I have two conjuncts, okay, I cannot move anything from them. In a coordinate structure, no conjunct may be moved, nor may any element contained in a conjunct be moved out of that conjunct. That is, here, someone will put the chair between some table and the sofa. For instance, here we have the sofa. So where is the coordinate structure that I cannot move anything from it? Is this one, some table and the sofa, or some sofa, or any sofa. So meaning there is no possibility to move anything from this, okay? And if ever we move any part of this conjunction or coordinate structure, the result is what? Is an ungrammatical sentence. And this is what we have here. In B, the same thing, the lute, which is a musical instrument, which Henry plays. Okay, so meaning that what do we have here? We have Henry plays the lute and sings madrigals. Madrigals is like a couple of people singing together without music. Is warped. So meaning that the same problem here, the lute which Henry plays. So meaning that Henry plays the lute and sings madrigals, meaning that it's like here we have what? We have a coordinate structure. We have tried to move the lute from within it to the top position, and the end is what? Is an ungrammatical sentence. So here it says that in 11a and 11b, the WH trace and the relative pronoun, so we are talking about what? This relative, we're talking about what here, okay? Or which here, the relative pronoun, are extracted out of the conjuncts. 11a and 11b are therefore ruled out by what? By the coordinate structure constraint. So meaning that 11a and 11b, if I would like to talk about why they are ungrammatical, it's because they do not observe this constraint that we call the coordinate structure constraint. There, however, look, all the time we talk about irregular possibilities, if you like. Let us call them irregular. In 11, okay, there are, however, cases which suggest that this coordinate structure constraint in 10, this one, okay, that is which says that you cannot move anything from within, coordinate structures, is not sufficient. Why? Because in 12a and 12b here, below, all the relative pronoun is extracted out of a conjunct, because here we said that we have extracted what and which from within these, coordinate structures. So the end is ungrammatical. How can we account? Why are we saying that it's not sufficient? That is, the coordinate structure constraint is not sufficient. Look, we have an example here. Students who fail the final exam, or that's the coordinate conjunction. So students who fail the final exam, or normally what do we have here? Or who do not do the reading will be executed. So, but if we talk about this, the final exam, who fail, that is from fail the final exam, or do not do the reading, what's this? This is the coordinate structure. But who has moved from this position? No, who fail as the subject here and the subject here. So it has moved. That is, we have movement from within the, if you like, the coordinate structure here. Okay. The same thing for this sentence. You have, they remove the president whom the judge has sentenced and the warden will execute. Normally, whom as an object pronoun, it should be the object of the verb sentence and the object of the verb execute. But still, we could move whom from within, because here the judge has sentenced and the warden will execute. Meaning, if I talk about the coordinate structure here, it will be what? 2 IPs. The judge has sentenced him, and the warden will execute him. But we could move whom here. Now, meaning that this is like an exception to the coordinate structure constraint, because here we said no element, no conjunct may be moved, or nor may, look here, nor may any element contained in a subject or a conjunct be moved. Here it means no one, no conjunct. And here, nor may any element, okay, in 10. But here, this is an exception here, because we are talking about whom, which has moved from the object position of sentence and the object position of execute. The same thing who has moved from the position of failing the final exam and the position of not doing the reading. So meaning it's the subject here, and it's the subject of fail, but it has moved. So that's why Ross, you remember, okay, Ross has tried to revise that coordinate conjunction that we have here, okay, constraint. He has revised it. So meaning it's not no conjunct or nor may any element. Here he said, unless, now we can revise it, unless the same element is moved out, the same element is moved out of all conjunct. Why the same element? Because here I am moving the subject of this clause and the subject of this clause, okay? Here I am moving the object of this clause that is sentenced whom, and the warden will execute also whom, okay? Okay. By the way, this is also, we call it ellipsis. Also, we call it pseudo-gapping. I have just written an article on pseudo-gapping in Arabic. It is being reviewed now.
Also, sir, it was called also across the board exception.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Across. Yeah. When we talk about movement, but when we can read this like this, for instance, whom the judge has sentenced and whom the warden will execute. Also, ellipsis. That is, we have dropped the subject from these two positions, etc. That's what you call ellipsis. Okay. Or pseudo-gapping, if you would like to just to Google it, etc. Yeah. And this is what you have talked about right now. But yes, we have across the board movement takes. Here it means across the board, yes. Okay, so at this level we understand that we have moved from that trace effect to what we call here the vacuous movement, okay, hypothesis, okay. The last one, it's what we talked about last time. It's what we call the okay. I don't want to go to every. Okay, okay. Here. Okay. I want to save time for you, Badr. Okay, yes, it's the same example. You remember it?
Okay.
It's the same example. Okay, let us see now. As a minimalist way, now we are trying to converge towards what? Towards what you call the phase impenetrability condition, or the PIC. Now I can use PIC, and you understand. Okay, phase impenetrability condition. Okay. As a minimalist way of accommodating the vacuous movement hypothesis, I claim that only agree takes place with the WH subject remaining in situ. I argue that this analysis follows as a natural consequence of Chomsky's probe-goal theory of movement. So we talked about probe-goal before. Now, I would like to go directly to the explanation. Let me just find it, and believe me, I will make it easy, so that because here we will reach what we call the phase impenetrability condition. I'm just trying to save time for you, Badr. Okay.
Take your time, sir. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. At least now. Okay. I will read from here, and we will see how to skip the details. Essentially, following Kane, Saito-Fukui, etc., we assume that overt category movement creates an adjunction structure, a multi-segment category. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sir, the phase
impenetrability condition.
Yes, condition is in page 13. Yes.
No, on this one? On this article, you mean, Hamza?
Yes, it's in 194. The page.
94. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Now we can. Okay. Of course, you have to read about these. I mean, these items here. You have to read so that you can understand these details. That is what you call the Q feature, the EPP feature, or of C, and the WH feature of who. As a this is something you have. Probably Shuruq will talk when she talks about phases, because she will talk about phases, etc. Namely, what we call the VP and CP. But now I'm just trying to brief you with the movement from that trace effect to vacuous movement, and to now the last one is the phase impenetrability condition and that trace effect. Look, it's like we have gone back to the first page on this article, what you call that trace effect. Okay. Given the analysis of the vacuous movement hypothesis proposed in last section, let us consider that trace effect. Chomsky, now we are talking about phases, because once you see 2000, 2001, that's phases. We are no more in 1986 or whatever. That's the very developed way of analyzing these types of movement. Proposes the notion of phase. Phases, as Shuruq will explain, all the time I'm saying Shuruq, I don't know what she's going to do, but I'm sure, I trust that you are good, she will do well. Phases, arguing that the phases, it means like steps in movement, because it's like stopover, arguing that derivations proceed phase by phase, like step by step. Okay, so we adopt Chomsky's definition of phase, claiming that a phase, so phases that are accepted till now, although I have reviewed an article, very good one, is saying that even DPs are phases. But here at this level, Chomsky started with VP and CP in 2000, but a lot of authors now, including myself, who are working on different phrases, and we question whether they are. Even I have questioned also what we call the construct phrase, idafa in Arabic. Okay, whether it is also a phase, etc. You will work on any, if you are, trying to specialize in the domain of syntax. You can question a lot of things. You will have to, during your doctoral research during that time, you will have to write articles, etc. Those who are specialized, they can think about a lot of things in terms of phases. So the main phases that Chomsky talked about in 2000 and 2001 are the light VP and CP. Remember that when I talked about the light VP, I said a light VP is like a VP which is above the big VP, because the big VP, as I said, for now you have to understand that it's a lexical array where words, they come from the lexicon and be situated in big VP. But once we have transitivity, verbs, transitive, etc., now we have to create this light VP. In one of my latest articles, instead of big DP, I have worked on small DP. Others, they are working on small tense phrase, T, like small t here. It depends on, that is the issue that you are handling in your work, etc. But basically, we have this light VP and the CP. These are the two steps in the derivation that are phases. But based on the notion of phase now, we define the phase impenetrability condition, or the PIC, okay? I will give you just the ones that you can understand. Okay, this one. In phase alpha, it can be VP or CP, with a head H, meaning when I talk about the VP, it would be the VP here. If I talk about the VP here, please read, if you would like to read this article, read why do we use this, okay, what we call strong phases. You will find this star here. That's what we call strong phases. When they are strong, we use this star. Okay. So when we talk about VP as a phase, meaning the head of the VP is the little v. Okay. When I talk about the CP, so the head, it would be the C, the complementizer. Anything within the complement as a complementizer, it's the head of that phase. Okay. So only the head. When we say H here, it means only the head, and its edge. edge here, it means the specifier. Okay, so remember, edges, that is specifiers and adjuncts. But at this level, remember, edge is the specifier and H is the head, are accessible to operations outside alpha. Okay, now let us see. I will not talk about command 32, etc. I will move to 33. Now, who do you think? Now we go back to that trace effect that is within the in the 80s, etc. Around 90s. The name it was. I mean, the problem that we had here, it was called that trace effect. As you said, we said that the movement here, it's because it violates ECP, etc. That's when we talked about that trace effect. Now we are talking about within, I mean, phase impenetrability condition. Okay, who do you think that saw Bill? Now we try to understand it within minimalism. During the derivation of 33, this sentence, we come to the stage where we construct the embedded CP phase. What does mean the embedded CP phase? That is, now we can go back to these ones. Okay, who CBIL? And we are talking about what we call the light VP here because we have a verb which is, I mean, we can talk even about the main VP here, the lexical array. But what is important for us is that also this one is working within the VP, which is the light VP here. Look, it's the light VP, meaning that also this one is a step in the derivation, as this one is another step in the derivation. Now, what do we have here as head and as spec of this VP? Meaning we have this C as a verb, as a head of VP, the head of this phase, and we have who, which is the edge of the VP. Now, if we talk about this CP here, the CP here, do we have any spec CP? We don't have it here. We don't have who or why or what or whatever, okay? But we have that. We have, if you like, the head of this phase, because we talked about CP as a phase, so it has this is its head. As the VP here, it has this head. Now I will just read, and you will, I'm sure you will understand Allah. So in this figure, I mean figure 4, I'm talking about this one, okay? This one, this is figure 4, remember it. That you have who as spec tense phrase, okay? And you have who CBIL, because here who, you will say, so who has moved from this position to this position. But can we say that who CBIL? Can we say it? Now you would ask the question, why is this impossible? Why this movement is impossible? Of course, the first thing that you have in mind now, that who normally is spec VP. So this one is accessible to movement. It might move. Like C, it might move also. But let's see. Let us read. The embedded VP that constitutes an independent phase. That is, I'm talking about, so I will show you both here. Oh, I cannot do it there. Anyway, since the subject, so the embedded VP, it constitutes an independent phase. Okay. Since the subject WH phrase, who, which originates in the spec of V, asymmetrically C commands V. It is the edge of V in the embedded VP phase. This is what I have just talked about. So there is no need to, explain this. I can explain it again if you like, but there is no need, I think, for it. So we said that this one is the edge. This one is the verb of this VP. So meaning here, I'm talking about a phase here, okay? So who here? We are asking the question whether V, the light V, also or who asymmetrically C commands. Yeah, C commands it in here. If we draw the whole VP here, we will find that who, yeah, C commands the light V here. Okay. Okay. So it is the edge of V in the embedded VP phase. According to Pick, who is accessible to operations outside the embedded VP phase? Yeah, because who is the edge? We said the edge and the head, both of them, they are, if you like, accessible to operations outside. It's not within the VP. No, outside the VP. Meaning I can move something if there is a need for it above, or that is because it's bottom up, so I have to go up. So it traces from within VP and adjoins to tense phrase, satisfying the extended projection principle feature of T. I will go back. Are you following me here?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So meaning, we talked about the light VP as a phase, as this CP is a phase, okay? So we said only the edge and the head of this phase are accessible to other operations outside. So meaning that who, according to the PIC or to phase impenetrability condition, it can move to this position. As C can move to this position. Why whom would move here? Because there is an extent, that is what you call there is an EPP feature of that. Here you will tell me, what does it mean this? No, because that here, that you, suppose I'm saying, that you know, that you have seen, that you, a spec, so meaning, that here, sometimes it requires a subject. That's why we have look here, that's why I'm talking about EPP, because what's this? This projection principle or extended projection principle simply says that we need this subject position to be filled. So it's that which has this feature. P, this P here, it means what? It means peripheral position. It can be focus, it can be a topic, anything. So P here, it means peripheral. Forget about it now. Peripheral, it means peripheral to tense phrase, or it is like above the tense phrase. It's above it. It's at the top of it. So that's why we have this P feature. But this feature, EPP, it means that it tells you, but I need the subject here. So meaning that, as I gave you the example, that you have to explain that she, whatever. So meaning that there is a need for a subject in this position. So meaning that there is an EPP feature here that has been satisfied, and you will have that who, so, Bill, or that who, etc. Okay, but at this level it's fine. So meaning we have satisfied at least the extended projection principle feature. Okay, let us read now. Okay, so who is accessible? We said that who that started within VP as subject of VP is accessible to operations outside. Okay, now it traces from within VP and adjoins to the tense phrase. This is what I have just explained, because there is an EPP feature of tense. So the tense also will require that even the V here should move to tense to get what? To get tense or to check tense. It's not to be assigned tense, but to check tense phrase here, and whether it agrees. There will be an agreement feature here in this minimal domain here. There will be an agreement feature. Okay, but you cannot say that the people tries. That the people try, for instance. So meaning there is an agreement feature in this minimal domain. I believe that Badr will talk about these minimal domains, etc. Okay, but we are trying to see to what extent. I mean, how do we have to? Explain that phase impenetrability condition is like a little bit more advantageous than that trace effect. Okay, so it traces from within VP, etc., satisfying the extended projection principle of tense. Chomsky claims that the head of a phase may be assigned an EPP feature. Yes, meaning that which provides an escape hatch for successive cyclic movement through the edge of a phase. Let us see this. So meaning that it says that this head of the phase, it can be assigned an EPP feature, meaning that also C has to move here. It's like that has this extended projection that needs a subject. When I say EPP, remember subject. That remembers or needs a subject in this position, so it has this feature. The same thing for tense here. Tense also has this feature, which is the EPP feature, meaning that tense, if I have a tensed verb here, meaning that this position should be filled. Okay? Okay. Which provides an escape hatch. What does mean an escape? It's like a place where you can survive. You go to and live in that position. It's like an escape, a position where I can go to or escape to. Okay. For successive cyclic A bar movement. through the edge of a phase. Now, the edge of a phase, as we said, is the spec, meaning that you are moving the verb, etc., for instance, across the edge, which is the spec of that VP. The head of a phase may be assigned an EPP feature. That's fine. But we need to understand, okay, to allow the probe goal theory of movement to apply to successive cyclic A-bar movement without change, Chomsky assumes that the head of a phase may also be assigned a non-specific peripheral feature. You remember when I told you about P feature? I told you that a peripheral feature is a feature that is associated with something which is outside the tense phrase, which is contingent on the assignment of the EPP feature. P feature belongs to the peripheral system like force, topic, focus, etc. Yes, anything which is a little bit higher than the tense phrase. Now, in figure 4, C, the head of the embedded CP is assigned a P feature and EPP feature. Yes, because we are talking about assigning this, the CP. That is, the CP is a phase. But it has been assigned this peripheral feature and EPP feature. I will go back and so that you can understand. So here I said that here, which is the head of this phase, required a subject in this position. So meaning that it has this what you call EPP feature or subject position should be filled, etc. So meaning that this one is like the head of a phase here. It is assigned in 34. So that head is assigned this feature, which is the EPP feature. The same thing for C here. C, the head of the embedded CP phase, is assigned also a P feature and extended projection principle. Because we talked about this, now we are explaining this. P feature is non-specific in the sense that it is not specified as force, topic, or focus. Is it focus? Is it topic? Is it force? So at this level, it's not specified. We don't know that the function of that, the word that in that sentence. It may enter into a matching relation with any feature that belongs to the peripheral system. Okay. Now I would like to go to the explanation. I don't know where to go. Okay. I would like just to see where okay. So here, yeah, because I need to save time. So now remember this. So we were talking just at this level, that, who, and whose see Bill. This is what I was explaining before. Now you have, do you think that who saw Bill? Of course, if I give you a sentence like this one, you would say that this one is not grammatical. Yes or no?
Yes,
or
but rather uninterpretable.
What is not interpretable? It's not interpretable. You mean that it has no meaning? Yes, that's what you mean, Hassan?
I said that because we are in the minimalist program, we would rather use the word uninterpretable rather grammaticality.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
okay,
just
yes.
a terminology problem.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah. Okay, now, look, if we talk about this clause, of course, you will tell me that, yeah, so we have a light VP here, meaning we have a phase here, embedded phase, and we have another phase at the top. Why? Because you have another verb. This verb also is transitive, so it is the head, if you like, of the this domain, which is the VP, etc. So here you have VP because it's a lexical array for this one, and you have another VP here, etc. So you have tense phrase, the embedded sentence, or the embedded CP. So meaning here, I'm moving from this phase to this phase to the matrix phase. Now take a look at this. Okay, try to remember because I will be reading and explaining. Okay, the matrix light verb V. I am talking about this one now. Okay, which is the head of the matrix VP phrase. Yeah, so it's the head of this VP phrase. Is assigned a P feature because all this phrase now is peripheral, is focus phrase for this one. Okay, so that's, and it has also Okay, yeah, of course, because think here as a verb, it will need a subject. That's the EPP feature here. So the P feature should be satisfied by entering into a matching relation with the Q feature, etc. The EPP feature should be satisfied by merger of who in the minimal domain of V. Where's the minimal domain of V? Here. Please. The minimal domain, Badr. Where is the minimal domain of V here? Badr. Anybody? You have everything there. So if you remember, we talked about this before. So we say it's question of that. You think who saw Bill? We said that. But no, the problem is that we have another phase here, which is that who saw Bill, etc. And we have a minimal domain here, okay? And we have an internal domain. The internal domain, as I said, it's all the time, it will include internal arguments. Okay, I will read. So the extended projection principle should be satisfied by merger of who in the minimal domain of V. Okay, so it has been, if you like, moved to this position, but the problem is that we will say, does it move elsewhere? Does it move above? It should be noted, however, that who here, look here, remember, or read this, focus on this. It should be noted, however, that who is not the head of the embedded CP phase. Meaning that who, if it were, look here, if it were the spec of this CP here, if it were, it can move. Why? Because the pick, what does it say? The head and the edge. But who here? What is the role of who here? Well, it is what? The subject of what? Of tense phrase. Tense phrase, is it a phase here? Is it a phase? Just answer my question, please.
Isn't included in the phase CP.
Sorry, it is
Yeah,
not.
but it is included, but is it itself a phase?
No,
No,
No.
it is not. Exactly. So now we found it. Because who is not the spec of the phase. If it were the edge of the phase here, it will move. But the problem is that who is in the position of subject of tense phrase. Tense phrase is not a phase. So at this level, it should be noted, however, that who is not the head of the embedded CP phase, because CP is a phase. Tense phrase is not a phase. Okay, which is okay. Neither, because we talked about phases and heads. You remember? When we talk about phases, we said edge and the head can be accessible to movement. So here we have found that who is the spec of tense phrase? It's not the spec of CP, so meaning that who cannot move, is not accessible to outside operations, because who here is not the spec of the phase, but it is the spec of the tense phrase. So this one is incorrect. So that's why who cannot move. The second thing, so we said edges and heads. Is who the head of CP? Is this the head of CP? What do we have as a head of CP? That. Okay? So who is not in this position? Because it is not doing the job of that. So neither, yeah. So you understand now? Who is not the spec of CP, and it is not the head of CP, so it is not accessible to movement upward.
Professor.
Okay?
Professor?
Yes?
In this case, the previous sentence that we have been discussing last week, what do you like Mary's picture of?
Yes.
Is it a problem of cyclicity, in the sense that the edge of the embedded sentence filled by Mary, which is the specifier?
Yes.
And in this case, what should have two movements from being like a object of proposition and should move to the spec of the first phase, which is the possessive, I would say the possessive phrase, and then to the spec of the matrix. In this case, there is like a constraint, and this is why it's not grammatical.
Okay, I will give you the sentence so that you can analyze what you have analyzed now. Okay, I will find it somewhere. Yeah, here, Sana. We'll go directly to it. I hope we'll have it like if I do this one. No, no. I don't know.
It is included in your slides, Professor, in your presentation.
Yeah, but I would like to find it in Sana's presentation. So it should be somewhere here. Yeah, where we have Mary's picture. Yeah. Sana, can you help me where to find it?
Professor, it's slide 23.
23. Yes. Yes, Hassan, yes. Hassan?
Yes, Professor, this is it. Yes, yes, Professor.
Yeah. So the approach here is based on the notion of phase. Sana, can you help? Let's see Sana there. Can you help, or Hassan, or anybody? Yes. Now we talked about phases in the article, but I would like to know how do you analyze it. So here the approach is based on the notion of phase. The leading idea being that the edge, remember, only the specifier, that is the spec, and the head of the relevant phase is available for operations outside movement. Exactly, I mean, Hassan, what you have explained, now you have it here, okay? So meaning that just here we have also what we call the problem of superiority, okay? That is, y is superior to what in this position, okay, as the object of buy, because you have why John bought something. So y is that what we call also, I mean, in terms of what you call, I forgot the word.
Professor.
Superiority or something else.
Professor.
Yes.
Can you go back, please?
Relativize minimality.
Yes, also the scope. Sorry, scope.
Professor.
When we talk about the notion of scope, that is why has scope over what here. That's why you can say, why do you wonder what John bought, but you cannot say, what do you wonder why John bought. So why is like above what here. So why has, this is what you call superiority effects. We'll find it while reading. You will find this superiority effect. Okay?
Professor.
Yes.
But for the movement of what? I think it has to move first, because the position of y is in the spec position of the embedded CP, which is by itself a phase. And then I don't see where is the superiority of y over what.
Yeah, because
here for the sentence to be grammatical, the y position, the spec position should be empty for what to move to the spec position, and then a cyclic movement to the spec of the matrix, because the movement is allowed just for the edges.
Yeah, but here we are just trying to account for how. Yeah, what you said is correct. Just here we are trying to see it from the point of view of phase impenetrability condition, because if we say that y here, I mean, it's a position which is filled by this. I mean, the spec CP here is the y. It's the y which is accessible to move. It's the one which has priority to move according to phase impenetrability condition. It's not the what. Because what in this position, Hassan, okay? What in this position, it's neither the head nor the specifier, nor the edge, okay? That's why y has superiority over what? I mean, I'm talking phase impenetrability condition.
Yes, I am talking also about this idea of a phase penetrability condition, because also it says that one of its elements, that a CP movement of a constituent out of a phase is only permitted if the constituent has first been moved to the edge of the phrase.
Yeah,
And
it
I am
should,
talking
yeah.
about what? And this is
Yeah.
actually in the phase imperativity condition.
Yeah, but would you accept 12a? Of course not.
No, it violates this.
Yeah, yes, that's it. But you before you were explaining this, I think. What do you like Mary's picture of?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, also, yeah. Okay. Anyway, please, I would like. I'm sorry, I took some time from Badar's time, but I had
It's
to
okay.
explain that. Yes, I had to explain this, but I
This is
advise you.
the most important thing. This is the
Yeah.
most important thing because
No.
my chapter is only a pave way to the minimalist program,
Yes, yeah, sure.
like
Yes.
a framework. Yeah.
I would like to advise you to go back to Sana's presentation, okay? Because she has explained things, although she has dropped some sentences, because sometimes Sana, I couldn't see some examples. For instance, here I have 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, sometimes you skip. Here I have 26, 25. So here from 18 to 25. I don't know how did you, like, I did not find some examples. Here I don't have 30, etc. Okay, anyway, it's not a problem. Just 33, 34, 35, they do not exist. But still, I advise you at least to go back, please, all of you, to go back to this part, the copy theory of movement that she talked about. Because Sana, she talked about the inclusiveness condition, which says that you cannot insert any items, etc. within, okay, the inclusive, which confines the power of syntax to rearrangements of lexical items, banning syntax from creating new objects. This new object that we have here is in the example. For instance, here, she made it clear, Sana, just she couldn't have time to explain. Like here, Mary was kissed. In the empty or ECP, it says that Mary has moved from the object position to the subject position. Yes, to satisfy extend projection principle, etc. A lot of things to check tense feature, etc. But it has left tense. This T, sorry, it has left trace. This T, where does it come from? We have inserted it, but here it says that the inclusiveness condition, it says that it bans by, where is the inclusiveness? Okay, banning syntax from creating, look here, creating new object. What is the new object we have created? Is this T, trace, because trace did not exist before. It was not there, but we have created it because we said, well, Mary has moved and it has left a trace, but we have created the trace. So meaning that this analysis, which was the case in government binding, now it's no more correct, because normally we should write it like 14, like Sana did. Mary was arrested, and you have Mary. Mary here is what? Is a copy, just a copy. So we did not create anything. It's a copy. So we have Mary and the other Mary. Of course, we talk about the chain, the head of the chain, because Mary, when it moves, it will leave Mary as a copy in the position. So we did not create anything, meaning here we are respecting what we call the inclusiveness condition. So please, I do, so Chomsky, look here. Sana, she wrote everything. Just the connection problems. Chomsky, 1993, abandons trace theory and resurrects the copy theory of movement. So it's clear, according to which the trace of an overtly, that is a moved item that you can see, is a copy of the moved element that is deleted in PF or at PF, but available for interpretation by the end. Okay, yes, at LF. Okay, I do advise you at least to go through slides 25, 26, I would say till here. Yeah. Till this one, for Bayer phrase structure, till this one. So at least you read these 4 slides or 5 slides. But believe me, I have read Sana's work. It's a good one. Just probably she skipped some sentences that could have made it better. Presentation, but she gave all the examples that are needed and very explicit, very easy to understand. Believe me that I have read it in half an hour and I could understand what she meant. I mean, you will tell me we are not the teacher, so we'll make it 1 hour for you. No problem. Yes, brother.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now it's your turn. I did my job. You should do your job now. Okay.
Okay, I will share my slide now.
I hope I was not quick. I was just trying to go over things, so just to make it clear. But I did not want to use all the time that is allocated to. But there's a presentation. If you want to take a break, no. Do you need a break? No, not yet. Everybody, Younes, how are you? Do you need a break? No,
Sir.
no, not yet.
For me, no.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
For
sir,
others?
I need a break.
Me too. Me too.
Okay.
No.
So we'll take like 10 minutes and we will have Badr as the second part of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.